Question, why am I qualified? I'm going to tell you why I'm qualified to be sheriff. I'm uniquely qualified, but first, I want to get this out of the way. Idaho state law says there's only 3 things required to be a sheriff: 21 years of age, citizen of the United States, and a citizen of the county where you're running. How can that be? How can somebody with only those qualifications be worthy enough to be a sheriff? Does that bother you?
A little bit.
It's because we forget this is supposed to be an elected position. And for far too long, we have allowed this position to go to career lawmen that have never done anything else, career politicians, instead of what did our founders originally intend for us as representatives? From among us. And we've allowed it to be hijacked for far too long by career law enforcement professionals to run the agency. And why does that mean they're qualified to run an agency? Because you know what? I've employed hundreds of employees over my lifetime in business in 25 years. I have carpenters that have the most unique skill sets in the world that can build you anything you want. But guess what? I would never put some of these carpenter craftsmen in any kind of leadership. Because just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're automatically good enough to be in managerial leadership. And the same could be said about cops. Just because you've done everything, and my competition has done everything, if you ask him, so what? What does he know about creating jobs out of thin air? What does he know about making budgets with his own dollars from the ground up, where your only kind of indicator of success is you as a businessman either are successful and profitable or you fail. You're not playing with taxpayer dollars that can be replenished, right? Oh, we need just a little more tax increase. You know, our budget under Bob Norris has grown 33% in the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. How many of your budgets have grown 33% since 2021? Do you realize that last year our budget was $43 million and this year it was $50 million? And the county commissioners, last I heard, are raising our property taxes up 3% more. You know, as a businessman, that is unacceptable for years because of my experience in the government sectors and in big medical and in private industry. I have had to maintain very good financials because guess what they do with contractors? They say if you're going to take on a government job or a big project, you have to bond. And what's a bond? A bond is insurance that you will actually do the project per the contract without running off and leaving a half-assed project done. So your surety bond company says, we want to see your financials. We want to know everything about you. We're going to give you a proctology exam. We have to know that you're solvent. Do you think Bob Norris has ever had to look at a true financial statement and understand what it took to get those numbers aligned to where it needs to be in order to support men and women that depend on you for their jobs and their families and their livelihood for good decisions? Do you understand that the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and every other sheriff's office in the country exists to do one thing? What is that one thing?
Serve us.
Protect your rights to life, liberty, and property. And because these sheriff office exists, they have to have administrative side to it. It's a business. Even though it should be a profitable business, just to be clear, it shouldn't be a hemorrhaging, losing business. But in other words, these organizations are run just like a business, and what better person to put inside the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office than a businessman that has been highly successful for 25 years, never been bankrupt, never been sued, never taken a federal dime, never taken a state dime, stood on his own and provided for his people. Do you think that a man that has 25 years of experience in negotiating complex contracts with the federal government and with big medical is somebody that understands how to run a sheriff's office when it comes to the administrative side?
Absolutely.
So when you hear people say he has no experience, what are they talking about? Because I'm not in your own little club where it's just cops overseeing cops? Or is it that they don't want to admit that a man can come in with a business administrative background and do the job and do it far better than what a cop has been doing it? So let me tell you something. The very first thing that I'm going to do, and I've been saying this for 10 months, is I'm going to go before the Board of County Commissioners and I'm going to ask them for funds to conduct a forensic audit of the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and inventory, top to bottom, before we go to the taxpayers to find out whether or not we need to raise taxes. In business, if we don't know where our dollars are going, we're out of business. And the same thing needs to apply to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. We need to find out whether or not the money that we're spending right now is judiciously being spent. And what federal grants are we a part of that we have strings attached that we shouldn't be a part of. And it's going to be hard because there will be cuts. But here's what I can assure you. Under my second plan, we're going to help mitigate some of the problems of manpower, because we know that it's expensive to live in Kootenai County right now, right? My own kids can't live here in apartments because it's too expensive. That's a problem. But Idaho, post the Peace Officer Standard and Training Organization that oversees law enforcement certification in the state, has some really good tools for law enforcement agencies, and I'm going to be implementing a deputy reserve program because we can do it right here. We have so many cops that have moved recently into Kootenai County. How many of you know that Kootenai County is cop land? And how many of those people in the last 5 years, those deputies and patrolmen and whatever law enforcement background they come from, how many of those do you think retired early to get away from those hellholes that they were fleeing?
Almost all of them.
And you know what? I've had these officers come up to me, these law enforcement professionals, say, we still want to do the job and we would work as a reserve in a heartbeat, and we're not retraining or brand new training through the academy and having to put all these resources, like the current sheriff complains and he says, well, we just can't do this because Boise took away our power to do it. He wasn't smart enough to understand you've got a full crop of cops right here that can fill in as reserve deputies to supplement our existing patrol. And in the jail, where we are currently 20 deputies down. Do you know how dangerous it is right now to be working as a jailer in the Kootenai County Sheriff's Jail? I'm being told that we are one incident away from a consent decree. That means the DOJ comes in and starts telling you how to do things. How would you want to work 12-hour shift with a mandatory 4 hours of overtime? Day after day after day. Bob Norris has continually asked the county commissioners for increases to budgets to supplement and to pay our deputies more, and yet we can't keep them. Why is that?
Yeah, bad management.
Study after study after study says that money is not the only motivation when it comes to employee retention. Employees work with an organization not because of the dollar amount, although people do need to make a good living, but what's the other thing? They want to belong to something. They want to have a culture that aligns with them, where they have a path to advance and to be a part of something and to have ownership. And I subscribe, as I do in my business world, where I have employees that have been with me a long time because they love our culture of extreme ownership. And we're going to bring that to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. And I didn't have to spend 30 years as a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy and a sergeant and a lieutenant to figure out that if you can't retain employees, it's because you have a rotten culture.
The future is not just going to happen. You have to make it. And if you want a successful...
You see, one of the things that I learned at a very, very young age as a general contractor in my early 20s, you're doing commercial work, which I was getting into. Other men that have been in business a lot longer than you will eat you alive, and you won't be in business very long. So I learned at a very, very young age one very key thing: to surround myself with those that are far more smarter than I am, their subject matter experts and bring them on my team and listen to them, take their advice, and then execute what they tell me. And that is why I've been successful for 25 years. I've been able to take off the entire year to campaign because my people are running my organizations completely within alignment of what my beliefs, what my values are, and they're doing a great job. In fact, they're actually bringing in more work. That's what I will bring to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, plus 12 years of doing the job. Dispatch to all sorts of calls: domestic violence, vehicle accidents, DOAs, assaults, shootings, robberies, you name it. I got dispatched to them and I got to write the reports. I've chased bad guys down. I've tased bad guys. I've got into fights. I've been in vehicle pursuits. I've done all of it. I understand the culture of law enforcement and I love it. It is the greatest job I ever got to do. I love justice. I love going after those that would deprive anybody of their rights to life, liberty, and property. So that is what Dan Wilson brings to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office as the next sheriff. Not only financial and business accountability, but also somebody that understands what it's like to be a cop and how I can best support those cops. And my transition team, I've got an outstanding transition team. My undersheriff is currently Kootenai County Law Enforcement. He's been here for decades. He's well loved, has vast experience, and he is the man. For those of you that don't know, sheriff is an elected position, sets the policies, meets with the public, holds the department accountable, takes the ownership, but who runs the day-to-day operations of the sheriff's office? The undersheriff or chief deputies. So that is what I'm going to bring to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and why I'm highly qualified to be a sheriff. Now, what do you guys think about that?